I'll call it Thursday, March 9th, City Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda would be approval of the February 23rd, 2017 minutes. Any changes? And as written. Next item, the citizen comments. Seeing none, consent agenda, there's nothing. Next item would be refurbishment of the Hayes Aquatic Park play features. Yay.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Boyle, Director of Parks. As you're all aware, the Hayes Aquatic Park opened 17 years ago. In that time, City staff and the Hayes Recreation Commission have worked diligently to ensure the facility is kept in the best possible condition. There are 3 items that do, however, need to be refurbished at the facility. The frog slide, which is shown here on the screen, the floating alligator, and the floating snake. All 3 of these items have been at the facility for the entire 17 years of the pool's been in existence. City staff contacted the original manufacturer of these 3 items, as well as a second company that specializes in these types of commercial pool features. After numerous discussions with both companies, city staff obtained quotes to refurbish all 3 of these features. Excuse me. That was recommended. That is the recommended route of these companies. It's a standard in the field to refurbish these items instead of just buying new. I've asked the question several times of them. You know, how can something used be as good as something new? And they have informed me that that is the standard in the industry. This is also another picture of the frog. You can see here this yellow part with the red tongue. This is all soft material in here, and there's actually a tongue that comes off into the water. These items would be sanded down, and a flexible urethane paint would be applied to them. They would look as good as new. In addition to that, the frog is made of concrete, so all the green area here is concrete. And that would also be sanded down and a flexible urethane applied to it as well. And it would be literally as good as new. This unit is extremely heavy. It would require a crane to remove it, so it's probably not a feasible thing to do. Here's showing the back side of the frog. There are some areas here where we actually are down to concrete. I was informed that is not an issue. That is just something they run into all the time. They can deal with it. This is the alligator that floats in the water in the zero depth pool. This picture here, it actually looks pretty good. However, on the underside, city staff has over the years had to apply a urethane coating on it, and it doesn't look real whippy. You can also see that it's wore through in several areas. This is our floating snake, which is also in the zero depth pool. Again, it doesn't look bad from a distance, but when you get up onto it, somebody has torn a hole in his head. You can see the white discoloration. That's mostly chlorine from our pool. And then the paint, as you can see here on the stripes, a lot of the paint's coming off. So, 17 years, that's pretty good, I would think, for a pool that gets used as much as ours does. Oops. This is the underside of the snake. Also has had urethane applied by city staff just to try and prolong and keep it, from taking on any water or anything like that. But again, we have cracking going on. This is a material that's underneath the urethane that we have applied that's actually letting go. So, and then also it's wore through right here around the attachment ring. This is an example of what a refurbishment would look like. This is a tiger. This is from another facility. But when I asked for them to show me what a refurbished unit would look like, I wanted to see with my own eyes. So I said, send me a worst case scenario, and this obviously is a worst case scenario. This is what it looked like before. This is what it looked like when they were done. So as you can see, the entire exterior of this unit has had new urethane applied and is literally waterproof. It looks brand new. Here they are side by side. So city staff asked these two companies, what are our options here? Do we have to send all this stuff in to you? Can you do some of this on site? They gave us two options. Send the floatables in, the alligator and the snake, and we'll refurbish the frog on site, or we can refurbish everything on site. Those are the two options we were given. The original manufacturer actually provided the lowest quote of all of them, and that was to send the two floatables in for refurbishment and have them do the frog on site. And that is our recommendation. We are recommending to approve the low bid of $24,170 from Water Park Excitement. They're out of Texas. Again, these units have lasted 17 years. I don't know why, once they're refurbished, they won't last another 17. And last week, the commission also was requesting some information on the Tiger. If you don't mind, I'd like to come back to that at a later date. And I have several issues. Number one, I got the information from them late. Number two, we're not sure how deep a water, I'm still waiting on an answer on how deep this water has to be for this Tiger, because
Look at the side of it.
my concern is this thing sits up quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we get a young child that crawls up onto the head of it, we can't have it in 12 inches of water. It needs to be in deeper water. So until I can get that part answered, I'd like to put that on hold, and I'll come back to you with some other options, including this. And by the way, they did say they could make this Tiger more Fort Hays State, give it more of a Fort Hays State look, which would be really neat.
That'd be cool.
The other question that I have for them is this Tiger is actually set up with plumbing inside of it to shoot water out of its mouth. And that does create an issue for us down there, because we would literally have to cut the bottom of the pool and insert pipe over to where this thing would sit. And I'm not real sure that that's probably a good idea for us to look at doing that.
Would you have to do that?
To get a supply of water pressure to it, you'd have to have some sort of a filtered, pressurized water system.
Or could it be used without the water?
It could be used without the water, yes, it absolutely could. I just don't have enough answers on that particular item for the commission tonight, so I was hoping that I could bring that back to you if you don't mind.
Just the only question I have on that is, if we approve this to fix them all, and later we decide, well, let's go with the Tiger, is that gonna be an addition to what we have?
I would recommend it be an addition. We have plenty of room down there. I actually went and walked both sides of the zero depth, and there's plenty of room. We could actually do more than the Tiger if the commission chooses to. So we have some options down there. The Tiger is, just so you know, it's about $5,265 is what I was quoted. So again, our recommendation is to take the low bid, just to finish the three items that we have on site right now.
I would move that we approve to proceed with the low bid of $24,170 from Water Park Excitement for the refurbishment of, this doesn't feel right, you should be making this motion, of the frog, snake, and alligator with funding from the Pool Reserve Fund.
I'll second that.
Oh, my gosh. Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any other comments?
Jeff, is there any warranty or guarantee on this work?
It's a 1-year warranty.
And on fading or?
It's a 1-year warranty on workmanship. So it would be basically if the thing, literally if the urethane would tear and open up.
Right.
I don't think it covers fading.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, again, 17 years, I know that Hayes Rec and us have waxed these things and done everything we can to keep them up, so I'm pretty confident in the refurbishment process and that they'll be here for years.
So if it were to peel or something extraordinary?
Right.
Okay, very good,
So,
thank you.
Jeff, I'm the one that's complained about the frog the most up here. That's outside of the water, most of it. And as much as it's faded, is that normal for a cement, I mean, the way that's built to fade like that?
Yeah, two things are going on here. We've got kids splashing water on it,
Right,
obviously, and then when that thing is just sitting out in the sun baking, the paint's gonna start fading and what have you. So we have two things working against, but all three of these items actually, it's chlorine and the sun. I do know that and I'm gonna request when they deliver these things, I want a step-by-step with the type of chemicals, everything we need to make sure these things are cleaned properly every year to make sure that we can get another 17 years out of them.
I think we've done pretty good for 17 years. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anything else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next item on the agenda, annexation of Lot 1, Block 3, North Hayes Division.
Commissioners. Greg Sun, Public Works Director. We received a voluntary request for annexation of Lot 1, Block 3 of the North Hayes Addition. This is on Fort Hayes, on General Hayes, and it's property that's contiguous to the city limits. It's contiguous primarily because years ago, we annexed the street itself. So that there are properties adjacent to it that are not in the city limits, but this property is, and all of the properties are adjacent to because of the street. The proposed business that would be going in here is a HVAC wholesale business from Garden City. They're already doing some work in Hayes and around this area, and so by extending to this area, they have a warehouse they can work out of instead of bringing things up here all the time. So it's a very logical position. And if you are to approve this, it's already zoned correct, it's platted, it can receive all of the adjacent city utilities because they're right next to it. They're built out to that area. And then the development would be commence almost immediately after approval, if you so desire. This is the location.
Is that location north of the sailboard, or is that right behind?
It's north and east
North and east.
of the sail barn, well, almost across the street.
Right.
And this one shows you better.
Ah,
So
gotcha.
this is the location, this is the sail barn property,
Gotcha.
Hillside Vet, Dr. Miner, and Joe Bob's is right here. And you asked us last week about the pre-annexation agreement for Hayes Livestock. They have one. They paid for, through special assessments and initial investment, the build-out of the utilities in that area, and they owned more property at that time. But it doesn't appear that they ever put in the water and sewer to the property. So they have the ability to do it, but we weren't sure whether they ever actually have. So the options this evening are to annex the property as requested or not to annex the property. And staff is recommending approval of ordinance annexing Lot 1, Block 3 of the North Hayes Addition due to its contiguous nature and immediate availability of city services necessary to serve this property.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve ordinance number 3929, annexing Lot 1, Block 3, North Hayes Addition, the city of Hayes, Kansas.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Schwaller, second by Commissioner Jones. Any comments on that? Actually, I think it's really interesting. I think next 2 to 3 years, we may see some pretty good development out there.
Well,
So,
especially because the lots between Joe Bob's and this one have
Yeah.
sold recently.
Yeah.
And I think there is an intention to construct on those, but they just don't have immediate plans right now.
Sure.
So-
no, that's
But
great.
they're definitely, they wouldn't have bought them if they weren't going to do something.
Absolutely. That's great. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 2017 Street Maintenance Program Award of Bids.
We recently opened bids for the 2017 street maintenance projects. This was the funding that is available for it through 2016 funding. There was $1,205,293 plus the contingency that's listed here. So that still hangs out there in case there's some additional work that has to be done. And then this is the program that was proposed back in December. And as you can see, it matches the same amount of money for the project. The bids were opened on June 24th, and we received bids from 7 different bidders on the various projects. The projects this year are all over the city, so we spread them out pretty well, but you can see there's a concentration up in this area for the seal coat and the chip seal projects. And just to remind you, chip seal is a project where the contractor lays down an oil and then covers it with small diameter rocks. So it creates another drivable surface on top of asphalt. It makes it last a little longer. This has been the go-to street maintenance for asphalt streets here for quite some time. To highlight the chip seal projects, they are in this blue, purple color here. So there's several streets up in this area of town, and then some down in here. One of the reasons that all of this is blank in this area is this is mostly concrete streets. So there's no reason to apply those there. And then we're also proposing a chip seal out at Wheatland by the Votech, because that street is not doing so well, and it needs help. In addition, we have double chip seal projects, one for the sports complex and one for the airport fuel road. And those projects is just what it describes. It's a double chip seal, but they have to wait in between for the first seal coat to dry, and so they have to leave and come back, and that's why there's a difference in cost. One of the things I want to point out on the chip seal cost is last week when we came to you, we had a $100 error in our math. So it used to say $429,842.50, and now it's $942.50. So I just wanted to point out that we did find that error and correct it. The chip seal project was bid by APAC of Kansas at $1.56 per square yard, and the double chip seal is $3.45. And as I explained last week, the difference is because they have to leave and they have to come back, and so it's kind of remobilization to some extent. This is what our sports complex road is looking like after the winter. So after construction of the track and field facility for Fort Hays, and the number of trucks that were on it, and then the way the winter played out, we had some freeze-thaw periods, which are hard on roads, especially roads that don't have a lot of surface on them. And this only had, I think, maybe a double chip seal and a chip seal after that, so it's not very thick. Here's some more pictures of it. You can see here, even though it's not blown up, there's alligatoring in the pavement, so that's ready to go any day too. Here's just a little bit more. Recognizing that a double chip seal would simply not be enough to maintain this street, which is what we had intended to do, we sought some input from APAC, from Penco Engineering, from different people who knew what pavement is and what should be done to this property, and our recommendation from everyone was to rework the base, repack it, and then do a double chip seal on top of it to start building a road base again. The APAC did a couple of core samples for us, and there just was nothing holding the base together. It almost looked like just some gravel sitting there. And so one of the things that Penco suggested is that we work fly ash into the base, and that will solid it up. It'll make it hold together a lot better. And so because APEC had the bid out there already for the double chip seal, where there was no reason to rebid that, and they are the only one capable of putting down the prime coat, which has to be done after the road base is reworked. We are recommending that they get both of those jobs. But when it came to reworking the base, that was not in the original plans. That's something we had to pick up later. And we are proposing, we received bids from APAC and M&D, and obviously M&D is considerably lower. Our biggest challenge with this is just going to be coordinating two different contractors and making sure that the street isn't torn up and in different conditions for any length of time. So we'll have to time it with when they'll be here for the chip seal project. This project, because it's a shared facility with Fort Hays, they have agreed to pay 20% of the cost, so of $108,670, their share would be $21,734. I say that, but that's kind of more or less, because when they're applying the chip seal, we pay for so much per square yard of chip seal, so it could be just a little bit different than that number when it's all said and done, and that's one of the reasons we have the contingency. Seal coat is just an oil emulsion that's put on that seals the streets. This is done more with the newer streets that we have. It helps retain the fines that are in the asphalt and provides somewhat of a driving surface, but not much. Once you've played out a few of the seal coats, then you have to go to chip seal to maintain the street. The streets that we're proposing to seal coat this year are the ones in this teal color. So up in here, we have down in the Tallgrass area and then in the Sternberg area. The low bid for seal coat was Circle C Paving of Goddard, Kansas, and the bid amount is $96,216. That works out to $1.14 a square yard. Poly patch is another regular project we do in maintaining the streets. With in-house crews, we do crack sealing. Poly patch is a process that's kind of in between crack sealing and more patching type work or the overlay type work that we have to do. It's for a little bit wider cracks, for depressions in the pavement, things like that that take a little bit more work. We are proposing or bid 5,000 gallons of poly patch to be applied to the streets. The bid amount was $12.50 a gallon from Stripe and Seal of Hayes for a total bid amount of $62,500. And this will just be applied on all sorts of various streets and towns. Concrete patching is all of these ones, these streets that are in tan. And I want to point out that these are full panel replacements, but they aren't the entire length of street that you see here. We'll identify a few panels that have to be replaced on each one of those streets, and that's what the contractor bid on. So
You've already identified the panels that are going to be replaced, or you still have to?
for the most part, we've identified more than we could afford to replace, basically. And so that's one of the reasons I have a proposal to add a few more blocks here to it, because we ended up with some additional funding through the process. But we have identified several areas that need help. It's just that some of them are a little more needy than others, and so we're doing the highest priority ones this year. One of the things that is important to remember when it comes to concrete work is concrete doesn't degrade very quickly if you don't do it from one year to the next. It'll maintain its current condition pretty well. So if there's something that we don't feel is quite needy in terms of replacement this year, it will still be okay for next year.
Until the metal is showing.
Yeah, you don't want to let it go that far.
No.
So, Greg, you said that extra funding, is that because the bids came in lower?
Yes. So the low bidder on concrete paving is Sweeney Pavement of Hayes for $207,433.45. We also are doing some curb and brick repair this year. Anybody who has driven this section of F Street has noticed that by far the majority of the brick is gone in the street. It's been patched enough times that it looks like it's kind of a concrete street. And then we also are proposing to do a small part of Pershing Court, and that was bid by J Corp of Hayes for a total of $184,129.50. as I said a few minutes ago, we had $102,991.05 that was not bid on. It came in that much below the budget of $1,500,000 or $1,200,000. And so we're asking you to consider doing some additional concrete paving work on Lincoln between 20th and 23rd, right here. There are several panels there that need to be replaced, and if we could get a jump on those, I think that'd be a real benefit instead of these ones. We don't want to wait if we don't have to. We avoided it because there were other ones that were more in need, but these ones definitely need to be worked on. Again, this one shows that $100 difference in the bid amount for chip seal, so the number at the bottom is just slightly different. It includes the road base rebuilding for the sports complex, the prime coat. Those were not in the original plans. And as requested last week, we went back and looked at the amount for the sports complex, and we're recommending that that additional work come out of the sports complex sales tax reserve. And then special parks will pay for the Frontier Park chip seal project, and then the airport improvement fund will pay for the airport fuel road chip seal. Yes.
It doesn't look like you took the 21,000 out that the college is gonna pay. Is that not in there?
No, we'll pay this up front, but then the university will pay us back. So that's something that could be reallocated if you want to through this project, or if you want to carry it over for next year, and we could just apply it to next year's work. Because the same thing happens when we change this and take this money out of the sports complex sales tax reserve. There's now $108,670 that's not allocated to a project. So,
From an accounting standpoint, we have to cut the check, so we need authorization from you to cut that check. Otherwise, Fort Hays would have to get a separate invoice for 21,000 of it, and this is a cleaner way to do it.
Thank you.
Good question.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the 2017. I don't have the numbers. There we go.
here, this is a
Yeah, you don't have to do them all.
suggested.
We have to do them all at once.
No, you can do them all with one motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last week, we were told we're going to do them separately.
Oh, I don't remember saying
All right,
that.
then I
Sorry,
move we
we,
adopt the 2017 street maintenance program and the amounts, quantities, and funding sources in tonight's presentation from city staff.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Aller, second by Commissioner Jones. Comments?
I have a question about the chip seal versus a double chip seal. What was the price for the chip seal
The chip seal was, I think, $1.40.
and the double chip seal was three?
$3.45. It's more than double.
Mobilization.
And it was a mobilization difference because they have to apply it, and then they have to allow it to set up, and then they come back 2 or 3 days
But they
later.
have to initially mobilize, so it doesn't make sense to be more than double.
Well, we questioned that too, but that was the way they bid it, so. Let me see here.
You know, one thing I can say is I take great pride in what we've been able to do on the streets. You know, since I've been on the commission, you know, I know Commissioner Swoller, you've been a big advocate, making sure, you know, we double down on the streets and stuff. And it's, you know, it's not a glorious thing to do, but it's something we have to do. And, you know, hopefully we can continue this with, you know, because I know there's a lot of streets in dire, you know, need, but I think we're doing a good job of, you know, doing the best we can with it, so.
Well, and I think the study we did showed that they are improving.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we're winning the battle to
That's
some
good.
extent, and
That's
that's
good.
because the money is getting invested in the streets,
And it's a
so,
big part of our community too.
definitely.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment before you call for the vote. Last week, I made a couple pretty harsh comments about the university, the road down to sports complex and the university's payment. I did that, not having all the knowledge I probably should have. So I probably would have said the same thing. It probably would have been tempered a little bit. I didn't understand that we had a contractual arrangement from the beginning with the sports complex that they would do 20% of whatever we did going forward. Is that correct?
We had one with the original construction, That was not a long-lasting contract with the university, but they fell back on that original construction contract
Okay.
and said that they're willing to pay the amount that they authorized in that original contract.
I understand.
So
Thank you for
they
the
aren't
clarification.
tied, but
They're not obligated to, but they're going to anyway.
I don't,
That's a legal
we
question.
both own the facility, so I think there is a shared cost there.
Impliedly, that's what they owe. That's what they paid before, and they own essentially that much responsibility this time around.
So now they've added more facilities, so they own more.
I agree, and we discussed that, you know, if this were documented differently, and we could demonstrate what had actually damaged the road as much as it did, it might be a little different story, but
Well, and also this more or less was an unexpected condition that happened to the road over the winter. If we would have anticipated having to rebuild the road last summer even, or last fall, we could have begun longer conversations with them. But this isn't something that we can wait unless we want the road to totally fall apart.
That's what I was going to ask, if there's even just conversation that can be had with them about how much they own of the, or how much they're using of the property now. Nobody has to do anything, but sometimes you come together with good conversation.
Well, we've had some of those conversations, so we estimated they were around 32% of the ownership of the road, so.
I
that
appreciate
was
it. I appreciate our relationship with the university, so I certainly didn't want to make it sound like I didn't.
Well, and hopefully going forward, we can have these conversations with them to where maybe they can help us out a little bit more. And, you know, our complex the last few years have been the best numbers we've ever had, so we gotta take care of it.
You
if we
bet.
wanna continue to
You
grow
bet.
it, so. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. For the city manager? Commissioner Jacobs?
I just wanted to make one comment tonight. There was a ceremony earlier in the week in our police department, and they had a really nice article in the paper, and I just wanted to make a couple comments from it. I wanted to congratulate Corporal Colin Rowe for his promotion to corporal. Hearing his story and how committed he is, I thought I would just share that a little bit for anybody that didn't see the paper. But Chief Scheibler said, I think he does an outstanding job for us, but his compassion for the job, he treats people the way he'd want to be treated. He's not heavy-handed, but does what needs to be done for the job. But he's invested in this community. He came here through Fort Hays State University Criminal Justice Program, and he came on board with us and just excelled in the program. Rowe graduated from Fort Hays Criminal Justice Program with a minor in psychology in 2011, and after working as a communications officer, he received his first promotion in 2013 to police officer. He officially was promoted to police corporal February 26th. He said, I've been able to see the city of Hays outside law enforcement and now inside law enforcement. This community is just great, and I love living here. It's a small town, but it's big enough to have fun. I just feel like I'm making a difference. They asked his wife how she felt about it, and she and their baby were there for the ceremony, and she said, it's tough. You worry every night when he goes to work. Even being in a small town, you just never know. I wanted to acknowledge and thank him for his commitment and congratulate him on his promotion, and to thank the family as well, because they give as much as the officer themselves. Thank you.
When I ran for city commission, I think a lot of my platform was being fiscally responsible and making sure that we're spending our money in the right places and taking care of the citizens of Hays. And it's kind of nice to come to a meeting where we spend money on the swimming pool for the kids and roads, and I'm very proud of the roads and the way that we maintain them here and how nice they are to drive in. They're not like that in all cities, and actually if you drive around in Kansas, most cities don't have roads as nice as we do in Hays. So we should be very proud of the road maintenance program that we do have and continue to improve on that. And it's nice to come to a meeting and spend this type of money and really not have to bat an eye because of the commissioners and the city staff and the way that they've managed the money and been able to pay for cash for projects and things like that before I got on, or some of us newer ones got on. It's nice to be a part of the system and fall into something where you guys really have taken care of things, and it's I didn't know how well things were taken care of, but now I see it, and want to thank the former commissioners and the city staff for setting the city up like they do.
Commissioner Meyer?
I just was gonna say something about the fires that we've had this past week. I mean, we've been fortunate here, I think, in Ellis County, but our neighbors have not been so fortunate. And speaking of newspaper articles, like there was one in the Hayes Daily News where down in Ransom, it looked like they probably got the worst of it. And I think there was a comment in there about at one point there was probably 100 people fighting the fire in a town of 250, and
Yeah.
I don't know why it just struck me, because I've been having conversations with other people, about, well, what's our biggest challenges, in Hayes or wherever, and water comes up a lot. Water is an issue. It's a challenge. It's one of our biggest challenges. I wouldn't disagree with that, but honestly, I think population loss is our biggest challenge. Because water you can figure out. Population loss, that's hard to figure out in western Kansas. And when I read that story, I just thought, man, they're just, the government has tried a lot of different things. They did their rural opportunity zones, or Brownback did, and I think anybody who knows how that works probably saw from the beginning that that was not going to do a lot to stem the tide of population loss in western Kansas, or reverse it. But when I saw that, I just thought, man, there's got to be people out there who want that in a community. They want neighbors who are there for them in their time of need, because that is not the case in all communities across the country. I'm not saying that we're unique and we're the only place where this happens and it doesn't happen anywhere else, but our quality of life is so great in western Kansas. I have a hard time understanding. And I'm originally from what I would describe as eastern Kansas, so I have a hard time understanding why people don't want to live in western Kansas when you see something like that. So, I don't know. I'm not saying wasn't a solution in there, I don't know, just hard for me to understand.
Well, I wanted to touch on that also. The Hayes Fire Department, Ellis County Fire Department, they've been out protecting our region. I've been going to work really early, and I get on Facebook in the morning, and Bill Ring, that guy, their crew is going to bed, when I'm getting up, going to work and stuff, and those guys been out, all week long. Just appreciate the work they've done, and, Ransom, Ness City, all those places, Plainville, that's our region. That's what makes Hayes great. So I'm glad that, our guys could get out there and help them. And I also just want to touch base, the last 4 weeks, or last 2 weeks, we've had a lot going on in this town. I don't know if you've driven around town the last few weeks. We've had MAYB tournaments. We've had state spelling bees. We've got state basketball in town this week, and we've also got local teams, competing. TMP doing great. Did they win today, or anybody here?
The girls?
Yeah, like tomorrow night.
Do they? Awesome. And I think it's great. And next week, I actually get to go do the opening ceremony to Special Olympics, and I'll be actually keeping score at Hayes Rec next week. And just a real exciting time in our community, and I hope we can keep it going. So with that, City Manager, do you have anything?
I would request an executive session to include the city commission, city attorney, myself, for a period not to exceed 20 minutes to discuss attorney-client privilege and proprietary and confidential matters of information.
Commercial matters.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Jacobs. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. It's 5-0. Go ahead.
She can hang out in my office.